Hey everybody, John the Food Scientist here, and today we're going to be talking about one of the more simplistic methods of cooking, and that is boiling. Now I'm sure you've heard the phrase, if you can boil water, you can cook, which is true, but doesn't tell the whole story. This topic came up from a viewer comment from Skataneric. Thank you very much, Eric, I appreciate it. And his question said, why does butter prevent boiling water from frothing over? Now, when you're talking about boiling, you should probably also be talking about surface tension, because when you're talking water, it has a very high surface tension, which is why you sometimes see bugs or other critters able to skim across the top of it. And that is because of our good old-fashioned friend, H2O. Now, as you can see, I've drawn it very simply here. It's just a ball and stick model, sort of. And I've put a negative symbol up here near oxygen and positive symbols here by the hydrogen. And that's because oxygen is highly electronegative, meaning it loves electrons. So it's basically pulling the single electron away from the hydrogen and towards itself, giving it an overall negative charge. Now the hydrogens stick with the oxygen because they want their electron and they're following that charge also. But because they lost that electron, that's making them inherently positive. So what does this have to do with water in a pot? Well, because you have all of those charges floating around together, you ultimately get this nice little network of molecules, and that's what creates surface tension, because they're all clinging together like this, and it's very difficult to break through that. Now this is the loudest refrigerator in the world. Now there is a lot more to all that theory about polarity and dipole moments and electronegativity. I could probably go on and on and on about all of that for hours, but for simplicity's sake, I think that general explanation should meet our needs for today. And in fact, I could probably do a whole 5-part series on why water boils in general, but let's stick to the question, which involves butter, which is an oil or a fat. So I think what Eric might have been getting at is when you're actually boiling food in your kitchen, because when you're boiling just water by itself, it doesn't really froth up too much. You might get some water spitting, or maybe if your pot is too full, it'll come over the edge and make things a little bit messy. When my pots boil over, it's typically when I'm boiling a starch of some sort, so your general potatoes or rice or even pasta occasionally. And that's because these foods contain starch, which is a type of sugar. Now, I didn't draw that out. I really wanted to, but sometimes that gets a little bit complicated, and I'm trying to keep this as easy to understand as possible. But when those starches and sugars dissolve, there's some proteins in there also, they can end up creating a meshwork once they're in the water, and that increases the surface tension by creating this net of molecules. And that's why your water will ultimately start frothing, because these sugars are chaining together and creating a more solid surface. And bubbles start building on bubbles, and it ends up frothing over and making a huge mess all over the place. So why does oil and butter prevent that from happening? Well, if you'll recall, water and oil don't exactly mix. You know that. That's pretty simple. That's about as easy as it comes. But what's actually happening on a molecular level is your oil is breaking up into very, very, very tiny droplets. And these droplets act as bubble busters, or, like little beads that are preventing bubbles from reaching the surface. So they're effectively just popping the bubble before it even has a chance to form. And that is why oil and butter prevents your bubbles from forming and frothing over and messing up your entire kitchen and your entire meal. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question, Eric. Thank you very much for writing in. I hope that made sense. I may have rushed a few things in there, but I think I hit the major points for you. If you other viewers out there have a question you want answered by John the Food Scientist, please be sure to leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this current video, please make sure you like or subscribe so you can come back and join me in my kitchen and my wonderful other adventures in food and science. So, until next time, happy eating everybody. I'm John. I'll talk to you next time.